has to go to Oahu, right? And they have to walk your application in. And the day that happened, I get a call from a person I hadn't talked to in 3 years, said, hey, heard you got your real estate license. This is what I'm looking for.
So the question is this: how do most agents find the secrets to succeed in today's competitive real estate market, especially when the top agents are keeping those secrets to themselves? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. Hi, I'm Aaron Muchastegui, and welcome to Real Estate Rockstars. Hey, Real Estate Rockstars. This is Aaron Muchastegui. Today, I get to interview Blake Hill. Yeah, Blake and I have been talking on and off through social media, through Instagram, kind of over the last year. He's been one of our listeners out there. He's with Hawaii Life Real Estate out in Kaanapali, Hawaii, Maui, one of my favorite places in the world. And anyway, we were talking earlier in the year about what it was going to take for him to come on the show. He hit those goals. We're going to talk about it a little bit. Blake, how's it going, man?
It's going good, brother. Thanks for having me on. I'm stoked to be here and love living Kaanapali. And I just want to say kudos to you for honoring our bet.
Yeah.
Because without talking before that, I was really like, is he really going to honor this bet? And you did. It's awesome. So thank you.
Yeah, no, we made a bet. You said, hey, if I can close this much in volume before the end of the year, how about you let me on? But it wasn't long after that. Like, you knew it was a loaded bet, man, because within a month you were like, I did it. I hit that bet. I'm going to get on. I was actually just talking to some guys that I work with about that and about the bet. And when they were asking me, who's your first interview of the day? So I appreciate you being on here. And right now it's what did we say? 6 a.m. your time. It's early. It's still dark behind you as your world is just getting up. One of the things I like about Maui and about Hawaii is the time change out there. When I go out there on vacation, I can work from like 4 a.m. to 7. And by the time 7 or 8 hits, the rest of the world is kind of finishing their day a lot of the time. So at least by noon for sure. What's real estate like out there right now? I know the last 2 years has been kind of really interesting for Maui. I know some people that moved out there as soon as COVID hit, and they bought houses sight unseen. And at that time, early in COVID, you had to quarantine. So they bought the house, would go, and essentially they just stayed in their house for a few weeks until they met their quarantine. What's real estate been like over the past 2 years out there?
In Kaanapali itself, in the last 2 years, has gone up 40%. So you've seen that 40. And then you're right. I see more neighbors that I haven't seen. And that goes by the dogs. You go, oh, wait, I haven't seen that dog. And then, there was a lot of sight unseen. The market's still flowing. It's inventory's tight. You still have multiple buyers. People are still coming here. You see it every day because coming into the west side and most of Hawaii, it's really one lane in, one lane out. So you see all the different tags flowing in, and everybody needs a place to live. Yeah.
Do you think that so right now, short-term rentals, are they allowed? Like, is Airbnb allowed in Maui? Is it, or do you have to be is there special licensing? And part of that question is kind of the idea of, has the demand for housing, the demand for real estate, or the demand for short-term rentals outpaced kind of hotel demand and things like that? Has that had any impact in the market?
So you need a license. A lot of these guys that came in were buying up properties and flipping them into Airbnbs in neighborhoods, and then reducing the amount of inventory we had for the long-term rental market really started to, lack of a better word, piss off a lot of neighbors. And it's neighborhood dependent. And of course, there's illegals that happen. I think the driving force behind trying to move the Airbnbs out is the big money behind the hotels, because we do have so many hotels. And I think people would much rather come to an Airbnb. Most of the time, they want to be able to cook themselves. It also depends on the time of year too, and the clientele that's coming in.
Imagine with COVID too, it just changed some of the experience, right? So if you could, because those resorts in Kaanapali, I mean, there's really nothing like them. There's all sorts of different versions and different levels, but as far as like people to go hang out by the pool and they can get brought food and the villas have kitchens built in. So there's all these like ways that people can vacation out there. But I imagine that that changed so much. And so that a lot of people were like, hey, I don't want to go stay there if I'm not going to have that same level of service. So now I definitely want to go to an Airbnb with a pool where we can, get to enjoy weather without any of the other restrictions. Have you heard at all about like, are hotels getting full again? Are they still half? Any impacts?
No, during Christmas, 100%. It was beyond busy. Grocery stores were packed, hotels packed. In the beginning, what they were trying to do is create a bubble within each resort. And then you had to stay within your resort. Mm-hmm. And then you could sit out by the pool without your mask and have a drink or do whatever you wanted to do. But the reality is when you have an influx of thousands and thousands of people coming in every day, you can't control the masses. It's like you can't tell someone, hey, or you can tell them, hey, you have to sit by the pool, but it's not going to happen.
Right. Don't leave your resort today.
Yeah. Don't leave your resort. It's like, people are like, hey man, I've been caged up in the house for X amount of months. I'm not going to just sit here. So that's the beauty of the island. You can get away. You can go out to the northern side of the island and get away from people somewhat. But during Christmas, we're crowded, and it still feels fairly crowded now. My friends that are in the hotel, I think most are running around 50%. And then those hotels that have that steady clientele, they always stay at 90%.
Do you think there's more people so for a long time in Hawaii, there's a lot of second homes out there. There's a lot of houses that people own that don't stay occupied during the year. Do you think they're more highly occupied now? Do you think more people have moved out to Hawaii to stay?
I do. Because it used to be like my neighborhood, say 10 years ago, you'd walk through at night and there were very few lights on. And then a neighborhood right next to us, same thing. It's changed. Our neighborhood has changed a lot. I'd say we're probably 75% now, full-time residents, maybe 80%. And then the next neighborhood over in the estates, that's probably going at about 50%. Full-time residents.
Yeah. And I know you haven't been an agent for too long yet, and we're going to get into that, but how do you think the real estate strategy varies from, because you've heard so many strategies on the podcast, you've heard so many ideas, ways that people succeed. How does it vary in a place where 75% of the people are planning to live there and 25% of the people want to own it as investments or second homes or that sort of thing? Do you treat clients different? What are strategies you've heard out there?
The strategies that I put into place is looking at the client and knowing what's the driving force behind them. What do they want out of the property? Is it that feeling you get when you're sitting in the middle of America, but you have that second home here, and it kind of warms the soul, right? You can always retreat there. It's a great place to come. And then also just asking legacy property, what's going to their kids, grandkids, the amount of memories that you've now accumulated within that property because you've spent every summer here with your grandkids or even your own kids. And then, like my client, he's obviously a wealthy guy, and he wanted a legacy property, but he also wanted something he could use and also something he could rent out. Yeah. So he wanted it to pay for itself. And so it's all those questions combined.
Real Estate Rockstars, this is Aaron Amuchastegui for a quick commercial break. So during 2020 and 2021, the real estate market completely changed. There's so much competition in the market, so many people trying to buy and sell houses, but there's hardly any supply, hardly any product, hardly anyone willing to list their homes. It's time for every agent out there to become a hybrid agent investor, to be able to reach out directly to homeowners to try to get them to sell or list their house. we've got a new website. Go to leadpropeller.com and you can set up your own investor buyer website in just minutes. You'll set up your own URL, set up phone numbers, help go through to leads, help reach out to people that aren't listing their property currently, and have them fill out a form that says, hey, I want to sell my house. And then as an agent, you can go through and make them a hybrid offer. You can tell them, hey, I think your house would sell for $220,000 on MLS, but I can either write you a $180,000 cash offer right now, or I can help you fix it up and you'll list it for $220,000 on MLS. These are buyers that are looking for quick cash offers. Tens of thousands are submitting these forms every single day, and they're skipping the listing process. But so many of you guys out there are such good agents. It's a great opportunity to get that lead and help them maximize sales price for their home. So again, go to leadpropeller.com and think about signing up for your own investor site so buyers will start reaching out to you, asking you to make an offer on their home. Yeah. The legacy properties is an interesting, right before we hit record, I was showing you that here's a dream house in Maui that I'm going to own someday. And I think about it for all those different reasons, for the legacy property, for those things that last forever, and getting to combine memories and all sorts of different stuff. So when did you become a real estate agent?
I decided, do you want me, I'll just go through the story.
Yeah.
Real quick. So COVID hits, right? And I'm actually elated. Like, it was really nice. We surf a lot to begin with, my girlfriend and I, and my kids. My son's a pro surfer. And so we surf a lot. It was quiet. And through COVID, I finished writing. I was writing a book, published that. And then, so that was May of last year. And then around beginning of July, end of June, my girlfriend was like, your book's done well, you're doing great, but it feels to me like you're yearning for something more to increase your income, stay connected with people. You love connecting with people. So you've done well in real estate in the past. Why don't you become an agent? And I was like,
let me stop you there for a second. What's your book called?
Westphalia.
And what's the book about?
The book goes through, it's a spiritual journey, just a spiritual journey dealing with emotions.
Okay.
And it's all dream-based.
All right. So you do that book, you finish it. She says, your book's doing well. You've done well in real estate. Why didn't you get licensed? So keep going. Yeah. So she's like, I think you should get licensed. You know so many people here and you have so many connections in California. You should just do it. And so the way I work is, so I go, okay, yeah, that sounds actually really good. And in my head, I'm thinking, I have thought about it, but I never executed. Mm-hmm. So that's when I find your podcast. I'm like, I'm a big podcast guy. I take my dogs on walks every day, like 5 miles. I like to listen in that time, either books, podcasts, something. So I find your podcast. And I'm like, oh, these are great stories. And all you young guys, you're a young dude, young family, and it's very inspirational. And I've been in that position, being young and going after it and trying to accumulate wealth. And so I was like, you guys were inspiring to me, all these stories. So I spent about a month just listening to your podcast every single day on my walk. And then I went, all of a sudden the light switch flipped and went, okay, let's do it. So August, I did the class all online. The 1st of September, I tested, passed. Then I spent about 3 weeks talking to friends, figuring out what worked for me and with my lifestyle. And I liked Hawaii Life and what they were offering. I picked a mentor from there, which is another story that we can jump into. Yeah. Picked a mentor and just literally the day. So I picked my mentor. He says, all right, Hawaii Life doesn't take new agents. I said, well, I'm not really new. I'm like, I'm 56 years old. I've flipped, probably 10 properties. I've owned rentals, vacation rentals. Like I have a really good knowledge. And so he says, well, let me see what I can do. So they sign me. And then I submit my application and it has to go to Oahu, right? And they have to walk your application in.
And the day that happened, I get a call from a person I hadn't talked to in 3 years, said, "Hey, heard you got your real estate license. This is what I'm looking for." And then in my head, I'm like, I can't tell him I haven't officially got my license. So I said, all right, I'm on it. So I can't even get on the MLS.
Yeah.
And so I go down to a friend of mine's house, a broker, and I'm like, "Hey man, get me on the MLS. I got to act like I know what I'm doing," which I did. I needed the info so I could start shuffling a bunch of info to him. So just kicked it off from there. And then once I knew I had him, I was like, okay, I got to parlay this into, something else. I got to use this opportunity. So that's when I reached out to you. And it kind of started actually because you were on air and you had these crazy guys on. It was like the craziest guys you've ever had on. And
guys out of Arizona, Jeff and Jeremy, or Matt and Jeremy, right?
And they started reading all these reviews. And I was just coming back from dog walk and I read this review and I'm like, wait a second, I wrote that. So that's when I reach out to you and I'm like, "Hey man, that was my review. Here's what I'm thinking." And you're like, "Yeah, man, let's do it." So I made the bet with you.
Yeah. And let's break that up a little bit. So so very cool stuff. So you're talking 4 months ago. So 4 months ago, you get licensed, right? Like September, September 2021. Right. You're getting that on there. How did the guy that you knew for a long time, how did he know that you were an agent now?
I started planting seeds as I was going through the process, right? So once I passed, like when I was with the school and then I passed the test with the school, I would post that and say, "Hey, this is what I got going on. Just getting my real estate license. I passed my test. I'm really excited to keep moving forward." And I just kept doing that through the whole process and kind of telling the process through social media and telling people as I was, out and about.
So on Instagram, on Facebook, which both or?
Facebook mainly, some Instagram. And then I would text people that I'm close to and go, "Hey, this is what I got going on. I passed this today." So through the course of the years, I worked in the movie business for a long time. And that was way before social media. So in order to keep up and as a freelancer, you always had to stay in touch with people, right? I'd send Christmas cards and it'd be guys I hadn't worked for in a couple of years, but I always send cards. And I didn't do it because I wanted to get business. I did it because I wanted to stay connected.
Yeah.
I felt like connections through time. It's just always good to know people around the world. So, and I'm lucky to have been able to do that and travel, and you just maintain.
So you weren't doing hard selling. You were just reaching out to people you knew and kind of like celebrating with them. Like, "Hey, I passed my test. Thought you'd think this is cool." You weren't saying like, "Hey, can I be your agent?" It was like, "Hey, this is something new about me. What's going on with you?" type stuff.
Exactly. And then even before I started real estate school, I reached out to my tight group and said, "This is what I don't," because I don't really tell my goals, right? Like I keep everything pretty tight, but I reach out to my core group and I'm like, "I'm thinking about getting my real estate license." And every one of them were like, "You should have done that years ago." So I was like, okay, well, let's do it. We'll do it now.
Yeah. I've interviewed so many people in the last year or two where it's never too late, never too early. Right. I've interviewed agents like you that were starting that did it as like a 6th or a 7th or an 8th career in their lifetime, and other people that they're fresh out of high school and they do it as a career. One of the beauties of real estate, and then one of the beauties of real estate, I think, one of the benefits of getting your license much later in life, like you, is you have a network. You have a network of people already. So if there's a different challenge. If somebody's 18, 19, 20 to get their license, it's a different challenge for them to start reaching out to people. And somebody that's been around for a long time, you've had this network of people that you get to do. There's been, there's an agent out in Maui somewhere. He used to work at an art gallery, right? And he would get all these contacts from people from the art gallery. And I remember getting an email from him that said, "Hey, I'm leaving the art gallery and now I'm getting into real estate. And here's the contact info." And it was just such another way to like hit the ground running, that even though you're just getting started in real estate, you have these other networks, these other people. And if you can reach out to them like that, I love that idea that it's just kind of the way like life works out sometimes, right? Like some people get a deal their first day and some people get a deal their first year after really dialing the stuff. Everybody's story is what their story is supposed to be, but you're reaching out to people, you're planting seeds, and then your first deal gets to be a big one. So how did you, when you joined Hawaii Life, and you said you chose Hawaii Life by that system, right? But how did you choose your mentor? And what is that? And what does your mentor do for you?
I chose a guy who I've known for a while, and he's the opposite of me. So I was like, I need someone the opposite. And so interesting enough, like I felt like he was a good fit. Show me the ropes. He's very detail oriented. And so we start out, and it was great. And then 2 days after I submitted my purchase contract, he calls me. And I'd already kind of been flying solo by myself anyway. I was just learning the systems. And he says, hey man, I'm leaving the brokerage. And I was like, and he goes, I want you to come with me. And I'm like, I'm not leaving. I go, I've started this deal. I'm going to finish it. Like my focus is my client and this deal. So, so we parted ways at that point, and I just finished it up. I did have to call him a couple of times, but for the most part, I was on my own, and my broker is great. She's awesome. And so, I've done enough transactions, and the first house I ever bought was without real estate agents, and I pushed really hard. I mean, that's what we are. We're the conductors of the orchestra, right? Just putting all the pieces and keeping everyone going and keeping things where they should be and in check. So I'm very task oriented, so I'm good at that. So that's what I stayed with. I was like, I'm not going to focus on leaving. I think that would be silly at this moment. I have to focus on closing this, because we also, I pushed the closing date so my client could get this rental that was on the back end when I called the management company who managed the unit, because this place gets about $6,000 a night. So I wanted him to be able to close, and then a renter step in the next day, and for, 7 nights. So that's $42,000 that he right out of the gate goes straight into his pocket. So I felt that. So I pushed hard. So I was like, I can't be distracted.
7 days was a $42,000 booking.
Yes.
Property.
Yes.
Yeah. So the property was a $5.5 million house.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And so if it's fully booked all the time, you're talking, in theory, $150,000 a month in gross rents if you could really get that. Well, the way Airbnb works out is you don't really truly net that, but there was a few months during COVID where I had a giant property in California that stayed booked for about 120 days in a row or 90 days in a row, something like it was crazy time. So has it continued to rent since then?
Yeah, he's had it. It's in a rental pool, and it's actually within. The great part about this property is it's zoned hotel. Okay. So everything runs through the hotel and through the management. So cool. It's very much so as an investor, and you have the money to lay out through the course of the year, you're going to net about $250,000 a year, because there's hefty fees in there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, hefty, especially if it's in, I mean, there are a lot of those houses and condos and stuff that are part of the bigger resorts that are, there's the pros and the cons, right? And the benefit though, is if you're gonna have a second home and you have other people that can kind of take care of it and keep an eye on it, it sure changes that mindset. What are some of the things that you heard on the podcast that really helped inspire you, or tips that you heard that were like, that's helped me in my real estate journey?
I think the biggest thing for me was everyone talking about how they connected with people. Mm-hmm. And it's figuring out, so I had to figure out like, what's my best style of connecting? And through that, I think that's been the biggest part. You've had you always have great guests, and there's always a nugget that's in there to go, yeah, I can relate to that. And that's through that connection and figuring out how to connect. And I'm not the guy who's probably going to sit down and go, hey, I want you to give me a fee to represent you as a buyer's agent. I'm not there, but I love the philosophy behind it.
Yeah.
So it stays in my head and I go, okay, well, maybe someday I'll use that. But right now that's not what I would use, but it's a great strategy, and it connects people and makes them commit. So.
Yeah, I think one of the most exciting parts about the podcast, right, is that we get to hear from so many different people, and so many people have these different, it's like adding a tool to your tool belt and then being able to take it and modify it to be yourself. And you're talking about Don Winter's podcast. So Don Winter, right. he gets on there and he says one of the things that he would do is he would have the buyer's agent pay him, and then it would come out of his commission later. But essentially he would do that because he didn't want to show them houses, then have them go hire another agent to do it. And I had a lot of people reach out about that. And some people reached out to me and said, that's a great idea. And some people said, I could never imagine doing that, but it's just a style, right? And then different people could take that and say, well, I'm not going to do that, but I am going to say this when I do it, or I'm going to explain to them, there's all these different things where you can learn tips from somebody else and then help spin it in your own way. So you've lived a lot of life, right? You wrote a book, the surfing, the businesses, the real estate investor, and that. What are some of life's biggest lessons that you would want the world to know?
I think every day you got to wake up and you got to give gratitude. And I have a routine. I wake up and I do gratitude. I meditate every day. And it's finding that passion within you and then defining it and sticking to it. And you don't always have to see. You don't have to know where you're going. You just need to feel it, right? And see it. And so I just culminate all those things, and gratitude comes to mind. And then picturing yourself within success, and what is success to you, and defining success. And it can't be what your buddy does or someone else does. Don't make comparisons. You got to just stay within your success. What works for you, and where do you want to be? So that would be.
Hey, real estate rock stars. This is Aaron Buchastegi, and I'm interrupting myself to bring you this commercial break from one of our sponsors. And I know you guys would much rather listen to the content and not the ads and not the sponsors, but this is one that I'm actually super, super excited with. So many of the realtors that we interview on the show, they talk about how much systems are important and how much follow-up is important. And I'm really, really excited about our new sponsor. There's somebody I've been looking at for a long time. And when they reached out to me, I said, yes, we have to be able to do this deal. So that sponsor is Follow Up Boss. On an interview last week with agent Mark McGuire, I asked him what his favorite software and what his favorite system was. And he said it was Follow Up Boss. And then he went on for another 3 or 4 minutes to talk about why Follow Up Boss was the best CRM he uses. So there's a lot of superstars out there that use Follow Up Boss. Some of the stats they gave me: Robert Slack, 1.5 billion team in Florida, #1 in the US. He uses Follow Up Boss to get a 400% ROI on its massive paid lead spend. Deborah Beagle, co-owner of the Ashton Group in Nashville, uses Follow Up Boss to guarantee that agents who join her team get 2 homes under contract in the first 90 days. That's a big guarantee for new agents. Barry Jenkins of Your Friends in Real Estate uses Follow Up Boss to automate everything so his team can produce $200 million on 25-hour work weeks. All right, so here's an offer. You guys are going to get this special for being Real Estate Rockstars listeners. Now, I've used Follow Up Boss. We've actually used it in our non-real estate businesses as well, because it's so good at being able to set timers, set automatic texting and emailing, and what do you know? Best name ever, Follow Up. So here's what we got. For Real Estate Rockstars listeners, you get a 30-day free trial. That's normally 14 days. So in order to get this, you go followupboss.com/rockstars. So again, followupboss.com, just like it sounds, /rockstars. Go there, get your 30-day free trial, and check it out. Especially if you aren't using any systems or any CRMs yet, this will be a great one for you to start with. All right, everybody, thanks again. Now back to our show. One of the things you said on your pre-interview was you're great at kind of focus, visualization, kind of pushing. And I'm sure a lot of that's part of meditation. But we're going to so it's the beginning of the year, right? It's beginning of the year. People are starting their goal lists for 2022. They're trying to come up with what their goals should be. And if somebody's never done visualization, they don't know what it is, or their goals aren't big enough. What advice would you give them as they're starting out to say, what should I accomplish in 2022? How can I accomplish that? How can they use visualization and things like that to accomplish those goals?
I think first you should do a vision board. I mean, you have a vision board behind you. It's a great way. It's something you see every day. I have a big one in my bathroom. Yeah. And change it up and go bigger than what you think you can actually do. Don't think about it either. Just picture what you really want. And then for myself right now, I do have a goal for how many transactions, but that's just a number, right? So you need to bring in a word that invokes feelings. So I visualize success. So what does that mean? I'm already successful. I know that. So I just hold that feeling of what it feels like to be successful, what I want it to feel like, and just maintain that. And don't let anything disrupt it. And you don't have to go meditate for an hour. You could do meditation. You could do 10 minutes. But when you meditate, just focus on one thing, focus on one word. So create that one word that works for you.
And is that just closing your eyes and just in your head, just saying success, success, success? Like is it simple like that?
I've gone through transcendental meditation. So I've taken the workshop and gone through that. So I actually have a mantra that I use. Okay. But for someone else, you should create a word that is a positive influence within your life.
Have you read The Surrender Experiment?
I don't think so.
So it's a great book about, and for listeners too, I listened to this, I read it several years ago, and right afterwards, when I decided to sign up for my first Ironman, but the author of that talks a lot about transcendental meditation in there, but really the book is more about saying yes to the opportunities that come before you. Right. And as he got deeper into meditation, he started to see more and more, but it was really like when things are coming up, it's more and more natural to go, oh, I can take this decision or this decision, but I think this is the one I'm supposed to take. Instead of battling with the world and like fighting against if something isn't meant to be, you kind of know it because something else keeps coming up. And I had just read that book, and then a guy reached out to me. I just joined this mastermind, and he reached out and he said, hey, you should do this. Are you going to do this Ironman with us? And I had never heard of an Ironman. I was the least healthy person ever, like that I knew at the time. I was, very overweight and did not eat healthy and things like that. And I thought, that's crazy. And then I said, no, I think you're thinking about somebody else. And then another guy that I had just met said, hey, I heard you were doing that Ironman with us. A bunch of us are going to do this Ironman together. And I said, oh no, that's not me. Right. That wasn't me. That was a different Aaron's a common name. Right. And in this mastermind, they're like, oh, it's a different Aaron. And then I showed up, but it was the beginning of the year, and I had decided I was going to get healthier, and I'd hired a personal trainer. And like my second or third day with the personal trainer, he said, all right, so we got to get you ready for this Ironman. Right. And he goes, oh no, wait, that was a different client of mine. And then I went home to my wife and I said, all right, I think this is going to sound crazy. I don't even know what this is, but I think I'm supposed to do this Ironman, because it was like 3 different people, totally unrelated, don't even know each other. And anyway, and went off. So sometimes it is having those feelings, having those mantras, the saying yes to what's in front of us can create a lot of success in the world. One of the things you said was do things different than others and don't be afraid to be yourself. What do you mean about that?
You got to stick to your true core beliefs.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. And if you fear something, you've got to push past that, because typically success lies on the other side of fear. And I stick to that. Sometimes we have to put ourselves in situations that are very uncomfortable, and you got to push through it. And it gets easier, I think, as you get older, or I feel like it's gotten easier. Maybe for some it doesn't, but because you tend to just really don't. It's not that you don't care. You're just not hinged upon the outcome.
Hey, real estate rock stars. This is Aaron Muchastegui with a quick commercial break. Now, you've been listening, you've been waiting, and now the big Rent Ready mystery can be revealed. Rent Ready just launched rental property accounting for landlords. It's so new, I haven't even got a chance to check it out yet. Now you can easily connect your rental properties from RentRedi to an accounting software created specifically for landlords with RentRedi's newest partner, REI Hub. You know, I've used a lot of payment processing systems in the past, and it's always been a challenge, even asking them to generate APIs so it can talk to our existing systems. And any software that collects payments doesn't make it very easily to do that. But now with RentRedi, you can automatically transfer properties and charges from your RentRedi profile. You can track your income and expenses with matching rules and payment templates to speed up your bookkeeping. View your profit and loss or cash flow by property or unit. Get your portfolio's balance sheet, schedulees, and more. Guys, we're so excited about this, and here's something even more exciting. As always, with Rockstars, you get a special opportunity. If you're not currently using RentRedi, you can sign up using our special code ROCKSTAR50 and get 50% off your RentRedi subscription. Once you set up your properties, you can add rental property accounting as a premium feature. If you're currently using RentRedi, go check out the new accounting features designed to save you time and money while you manage your business. And remember, it's RentRedi with an I at the end, RentRedi.com. Thanks for listening. Go check them out. He said, success lies on the other side of fear. You know, another thing we tell ourselves is you have to go through something hard to see the beauty, right? But the success lies on the other side of fear. So our bet. So Blake reaches out in September. So we've been talking throughout the years. And then in September, he said, hey, I just got licensed. If I can close, I'm out in Maui, right? And it's a place close to my heart. Like you live very close to the place right up the street from the place that I have stayed many times throughout my childhood and adult life, and form memories with my kids there. He said, if I close 5 million in transactions before the end of the year, will you put me on the podcast as a new agent? And but like your other point, you're not really new in real estate. You've done other real estate stuff. And I say, it's a bet. It's a bet. No problem. You closed 5 million, but you knew, but for you, it was a loaded bet because you knew you had this other guy that you were kind of ready on. I don't think maybe you hadn't made the offer yet with it, but you knew you had a guy and you knew what he was looking for and that sort of thing. And then you sent me the message. Maybe it was November, maybe it was December, but you said, hey, I did it. I closed a $5.5 million deal. So one deal, $5.5 million. So you're working on your own. So not part of a team. Like GCI on that's 130K, 140K, something like that. So your first year in real estate, your first few months in real estate, you were planting seeds, you're using that network and you got that deal. What did you learn during that deal? I know you said you're going to try to parlay it into something else, but was there any big lesson that stuck out to you during that first transaction and so far, and what are your goals for next year with it?
So let's go back for a second though. When I made the bet with you, he had really just kind of called me and said, this is what I want to look at. And it was a building that wasn't even complete.
Okay.
And it was, and the units and they were renting between 10 and 12 million. And the funny part is I was gonna make the bet at 6 million because I thought, oh, this is a shoe and we're gonna get a
$10 million deal. Yeah.
Yeah. So we hadn't really even began our process yet. You just asked me to look at those buildings for him. And going back to your podcast, I learned so much through, I'm sorry, but we'll get back to your question, but I learned so much through your podcast, listening to people talk about getting in pre-construction, buying and selling before they ever even completed construction and having these huge returns. So I pitched that to him. I said, look, let's buy 2. Like if you buy 2, and then these are 2 to 3 years out for completion after a second year, and there was no stipulation in the contract that he couldn't, sell early. I said, there's a chance you could pay for 50% of this other one.
Yep.
And
it's one of my favorite ways to make money right now. Yeah.
And another great thing I learned off the podcast was there was someone else talking about it, is that within the contract through the contractor, they could increase as you go along in years of building, they could increase building costs. And that was one of the things that was hidden within that contract and no one had thought about it. And I learned it on your podcast. And then so when we go, I go, hey, are building costs going to increase? And he said, it's in there, but it never happens. And I thought, never happens till it happens to you. So those are great lessons learned on the podcast, stepping in with a client. So getting back, we make the bet, and I truly didn't know if I could actually close it by then. And at that point we were all over the map. So we looked at those units, and then there's a builder out here I really like, and he's developing 130 acres with 16 units, not far from the house that you really like in McKenna. And so I was looking at doing that and bringing my guy in and investing in that. And then we were looking at houses and condos. I mean, we were all over the island. And so I was like, we need to start kind of narrowing it down if I'm going to get my bet. But that wasn't the point, though. The bet was fun and it was good, and it pushed me to just stay focused. And what did I learn through the course of taking on this client was just take your time, due diligence. And the most important thing is don't sit and think about your commission. That's irrelevant. You're there to provide a service, do your job, and be diligent. And that's the one thing I was forced into. Yeah, it was easy because I didn't have to go help find a lender or do any of that. But I had to deal with my client who's here, his representation, which is all in California. So you have a manager, 3 assistants, and an attorney. So I did a lot of reading and a lot of like staying on top of it, because buying out where he did, you're running under 2 different associations. So there's a lot of paperwork to go through, and going through it with attorneys, and it wasn't just a walk in the park. So I hope that answered your question. We got kind of
does, man. The power of visualization, right? We had talked about that, like part of that bet, right? Hey, if he had just reached out, just expressed interest, then it was going like, what's the power of visualization of like, hey, what are the chances? What are the odds? And then being able to stay focused, even, any little goal, like I said, my vision board that I pass by every day, it's going to always just continue to plant that seed. And I had several goals that were on my vision board and checklist behind me last year that I hit, that it seemed like I didn't actually do anything to work toward them. They just like happened by the end of the year. And it was funny how many I was able to cross off just because I had stated them, I had put it out there, and then I had kept doing some of my day-to-day stuff. I love to, so the part of why people should listen to every podcast and get as much information as they can, right? Who knows which podcast we were talking about with those escalation clauses in the new construction stuff, because not all of them have it, but being able to come in as a new agent to actually have that understanding to be like, hey, should we look for this too? Like what works well and what works doesn't. Like on the new construction where they lock in a price and there's no escalation, it's like, this is a no brainer. We're going to put down a deposit. And if it's not worth what we want at the end of the day, we don't have to close it. But if it is, or if it's even better, it's like these great ways to parlay. So getting to hear something when you were listening to that podcast, you weren't thinking like, hey, this is not going to be a thing that I'm going to do. But when the guy comes to you and says, hey, do you want to do this new construction? Right. It wasn't a niche that you were going to focus on. But then when he says, hey, can you do this? You have some of that knowledge. That's fun to me. That's exciting to me and fun that you were able to pick something out from that to where even as a newer agent, you got to represent your client better. You got to represent yourself better and being knowledgeable from just learning from some other agents out there. What's your plan now for 2022?
2022. Right now I'm hustling. I'm farming my neighborhood, the condos down from me, and I'm farming where at the Montage where we sold this unit. So keeping it tight, and then I'm what I really I'm really good at. Like I surf every day. I do have my little core. I tell them what's going on, but I like reaching out to people. So I just keep doing that. Just try to keep connecting. Yeah. I think we should all just keep connecting anyway, because if we help each other succeed, everybody succeeds. Like that's the whole goal, right? Don't we all want to be successful? Yeah.
There's plenty to go around, right? And the more people connect, the more we can put random stuff together too. The more interactions we have, the more friendships we have, the more things where somebody asks me about something and I go, oh, the person you should talk to is Blake. And I know that because I know he's working on this right now. It's very as simple as reaching out to a guy that you did some movie work with and going, hey, I just passed my tests on this. Like, who knows when that's going to turn out to somebody saying, I want to buy a house in Kaanapali. And they're like, oh, you should talk to Blake. So continuing to network. Well, I know when I told you I haven't been out to Kaanapali since March of 2020. When I left early to come back over here, but I will get out there again soon. We will go surfing when I get out there, and you could show me some of the best spots I haven't seen in a while. What's the best way for listeners to reach out to you if they want to learn more about Kaanapali, if they want to learn more about your stuff that you've been doing or your other book, right? So I think you also said for the first 10 people that message you on Instagram, you'll send them the book. Everyone communicates, but few connect.
True.
Right.
So if they DM me on Instagram, I'll just buy that through Amazon and send it right to them, ship it to them. So yeah, first 10 people. Best way to connect with me, you can DM me on Instagram. You can hit me up on my email, blakehill@hawaiilife.com. I don't typically give out my phone number, but my cell is 808-446-2657. Shoot me a text. Stay connected.
Awesome.
Move forward.
Well, Blake, this has been fun, man. It's been fun getting to chat with you over the last 6 to 9 months, seeing how you're doing with everything, and really very, very cool. Your story is very, very cool. I can't wait to see what you get to do next year. And I tell you what, I'm so proud and excited that by listening to the podcast, you were inspired, you got some ideas, and it helped give you maybe some of that push to go further into real estate. So thank you for coming on the podcast today and sharing your story and sharing your wisdom with the listeners.
Thank you. One last plug.
Yes.
Go to Ocean Life Maui YouTube. I started a YouTube channel. I got that off of you as well and started just making videos, informative videos. So
Ocean Life Maui on YouTube.
Yep. All
right, let's do it. And my team, Evan and Jet, you guys will put that stuff in the show notes for everybody. So awesome. Blake, thanks again. And Real Estate Rockstars, thanks for listening. All right, Real Estate Rockstars, this is Aaron Muchastegui jumping in again to thank you for listening to the show. Hopefully you guys loved listening to that one. And I want to make sure that you know about all of the extra resources that we have. And also, we need your help. They say podcasts are free. You get to listen to podcasts for free. But what is the cost of that podcast? I would say if I could beg you to pay anything for that podcast, I would say the cost of the podcast is going and giving a review. So whether you download it on Google or Apple or YouTube or anywhere else, please go give us a review. Say what you liked, what you didn't like. It helps us get better guests. The more reviews, the higher we get in the rankings. Right now, we are the biggest podcast out there for real estate agents, and we want to keep that spot because we know there's lots of podcasts out there. So go give us a review. Also, be sure to go to hibandigital.com. If you liked any of the resources that those real estate agents talked about, we've got a huge video vault of those resources for free. Every penny that comes on the podcast that we interview, they give us something that helps them get their deals or helps them work with their clients. And we put that in the toolbox in our vault for you. So go to hibandigital.com and you can get it. If you're looking for real estate education, go to rebusuniversity.com. We have all sorts of courses in there to help agents succeed in real estate, how to get the listing, how to negotiate deals, how to become an investor, all sorts of different stuff, rebusuniversity.com. And if you want to chat with me, go find me on Instagram. And if you come find me on Instagram, you can send me messages. Tell me what you want to hear. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like. We try to put a bunch of content out there too. You can find me in 2 different places. It's at rerockstars.com for our Real Estate Rockstars page, or at aaronandmuchastegui.com for my personal Instagram page, where I can chat with you about all sorts of different things. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again soon.